going to read the introduction, part of the introduction to this book, Closer to Freedom, which is a collection of prose and poetry written by incarcerated folks that I worked with for 10 years in a writing workshop. This is the introduction called How to Teach Writing in Prison. Begins with an epigraph from Etheridge Knight, the great poet who started writing while in prison. He says, "I died in 1960 from a prison sentence, and poetry brought me back to life." Part 1, follow the rules of the institution. Before each weekly workshop session, store your valuables and any unauthorized items in the locker provided. Remove any metal objects, including your belt and wristwatch, before passing through the metal detector. If female, remember not to wear inappropriate clothing, short shorts, short skirts, revealing tops, etc. Do not wear clothing that is too ostentatious, that is, clothing that implies you might be wealthy. Do not wear long necklaces, lanyards, or other objects that could be used to injure you. No electronic devices, cell phones, cameras, recorders of any kind are permitted. Make sure to bring 2 forms of ID, one to exchange for a locker key, another to exchange for a visitor pass from the corrections officer or CO behind a thick plate of bulletproof glass. Before you enter the prison interior, a CO may or may not ask to inspect your notebook. Every corrections officer is different, displaying varying degrees of allegiance to the rules. For example, even though you've regularly arrived with stapled pages, copies of poems you intend to hand out, or samples of the students' work you've typed up, the CO might ask you to remove all the staples. While you pry the little metal pieces from the paper with your fingers, this more cautious CO will explain that an inmate could use a staple as a weapon. 2, always be a little afraid. When your CO escorts arrives, follow him through the sally port, an enclosed space between 2 heavy doors, both of which can never be opened at the same time. Try not to jump out of your skin when the second door slams shut with a loud clang. As you follow the escort up a set of stairs and down a long antiseptic hallway, you might make small talk, but don't mention that the place seems quiet today. "We don't like to use that word in here," he'll say with a frown. "It's bad luck." He may then ask what you do here, and when you tell him you teach a writing workshop, he'll say, "You volunteer for that? Why?" From the way he says this, you know you won't be able to convince him in the few moments you have that a writing class can change people's lives. So simply tell him that you find the class interesting. He will then make it clear that he does not find the men he guards at all interesting, and that if you spend enough time with them, like he has, you'd recognize that they are all playing games. This will remind you of the warning given at orientation that prison inmates are, quote, "keen judges of character and superb con artists," unquote. That and the constant threat of physical harm, COs are outnumbered and in some cases outweaponed, would eventually grow calluses on anyone's empathy. So just nod and acknowledge that your escort is probably right. Follow him past the kitchen area where the smell of fried food greases the air and down another long hallway. On the right, through several large plate glass windows, you'll see a group of men assembled in the library for the workshop. They're all dressed in identical uniforms, tan tops and trousers that resemble hospital scrubs. Some of the men will see you and wave hello. Many will sit chatting in the chairs that have been arranged in a semicircle. A few will sit quietly, alone with their thoughts. Make sure to thank your escort before you enter the library. You will not be guarded for the next few hours, and even though you may come to believe that your status as a volunteer teacher grants you some protection, you want to be on good terms with the COs. From here on in, the only security between you and a group of convicted felons will be a librarian wearing a body alarm, a red button device on his belt that, when pressed, alerts the officers to come to your aid. So say thanks, and as you enter the library, remember this other bit of advice from orientation. In case of a violent or potentially violent situation, stand with your back against the nearest wall. And, in case of a hostage situation, remain calm and do what is asked of you. Thanks. The introduction goes on from there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Speak Your Mind. I am your host, My Rose Spoken Word. And I want to thank our featured guest today, Chris Belden, author, teacher, poet, and incredible, I would say, man of service. I'm just so excited and happy that you are here today, coming on the show and reading the material that you're reading. I mean, it breaks my heart. But I'm so grateful that there's people like you out there that are doing this kind of work. And in a little bit, I'll give you the reasoning behind our writing prompt that we're going to do today, because it was inspired by your work. But first, before we get into our writing prompt section of it, I want to ask our featured artist a question that I ask every featured artist, and that is, what inspires you the most about your work?
Well,
or within your work, I should say.
I'm going to speak through the lens of this particular book, because many things inspire me, as I'm sure inspire you. But I will say that every time I walked into that maximum security prison and met with that group of incarcerated individuals, I was inspired by them and their work and their commitment to writing, and most of all, their commitment to vulnerability in their work.
Yeah.
Which, as you can imagine, in a prison, it's a
not easy to do.
It's not something that's encouraged or in any way, and in fact discouraged to be vulnerable. So you know, to walk in there and have guys stand up and read their work, and sometimes even cry with each other, was you know, so inspiring.
And it shows like how transformative writing poetry can be, which is part of the reason why I am doing this, and I'm doing this the way I am, because this section is our writing challenge section. And I really wanted to bring our local artists into the forefront of your mind, but I also wanted to reach you at home out there, especially the people who want to write but never have written, that feel intimidated by it. You know, those of you out there that aren't performers and are considering themselves artists like we are. We go to open mics, we're performing all the time. But there's a lot of people who want to write, but they don't think they have permission. So I'm giving you permission today to be a writer. But first, especially like I said, for the beginner writers out there, I want to give you a warm-up, because the hardest thing sometimes is getting started. And a lot of times, like when you're navigating the world of poetry and professional poets, it can be so intimidating. You know, they tend to set a bar that's so high that seems unreachable, but the reality is everyone can write. You know, we have words, we have brain, can write. And so learning a technique like a brainstorm, or our guest, our last guest, Miss Barb Jennings, said a brain dump, I think is the greatest way to get you into the process of it. So we're going to do a little brainstorm based on our prompt that I chose today, which is Diamond in the Rough. But before we write that, we want to get all of our thoughts down to paper. And so the way I do that is I say, if you have a journal at home or a piece of paper, take out a blank page in your journal, and you can write right at the top, brainstorm. And what we do with this is we spend about 1 minute, and we'll do this together in live time, just writing any impressions, thoughts, memories, experiences that come to your mind, or it could be anything, even if it's blah, blah, blah. I don't know what to say. The most important thing is that you're just moving the pen on paper. I call this priming the pump. Just like in the, you know, at the end of winter, you take out the garden hose, you hook it up, you turn it on, brown water comes out. You have to flush the system. So we have to do the same thing with our creative brain, because we're in linear brain thinking all day long, so we don't quite naturally make that shift. And a lot of people think they're not creative, they're not writers, they can't do it. It's just because they don't have that muscle, that superhighway that brings them right into that creative brain. So these exercises are going to help, you know, grease that wheel. So I'm going to have Mike in the back turn on some music, and you can join us if you want. Wow. Diamond in the Rough is our theme. So go ahead for about a minute. I want you to write anything that comes up for you about Diamond in the Rough. And I'm going to do this with you and also give you some encouragement along the way. one thing that I do like to tell people is that this is going to become your toolbox. So all these words or themes or impressions that you're writing down are going to be what you pull upon when you go and write your piece of poetry or your story or your lyrical essay, your rant, your creative rant. And the most important thing is to not judge what you're writing. Nobody is going to see your brainstorm, trust me. You can even rip it up and throw it out after. But this is just seeing how when you just keep writing, there's a lot in there. And we take that for granted. We tend to think that, we get writer's block, which I don't believe is a thing. I think that it's just maybe not the right time of day. You didn't do the right warm-ups. It's not the right environment. But everybody has a creative flow. But it just doesn't always come naturally. Even when it comes naturally, it doesn't come naturally. Okay, so hopefully you folks at home are all warmed up. And you can even doodle. Sometimes I just doodle because you can get ideas and thoughts as you're doodling. The most important thing is you're shutting off your left-sided brain. All right, Mike, if you can fade out the music and you can start to put your pen down. And then folks at home, what you're going to do is you can keep watching and then do your writing later, or you can pause the video. But now we go into our writing prompt part of the challenge. And so what you're going to do is you're going to write a 5 to 10 line poem based on our theme, Diamond in the Rough. What I like to do is I like to go ahead and number my lines. So it's nice to use lined paper. So if you do 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, it's great because some people, they think that they have to have the whole story fleshed out or the whole poem fleshed out before they start. But the reality is we're really just writing one word at a time. And if you have the theme on your mind, as you get to the end of it, you'll be so surprised. Every line tends to flow together in a magical way, and that's sort of the beauty of what we do. And if you go over 10 lines, that's great. I would, if you're a little bit nervous or timid, start with 5 because it's easier to wrap your mind around just writing 5 lines than 10. And then usually once you're into it, after 5 lines, you're going to want to write more. All right? So you try that at home and feel free to email your poems to me at speakyourmind@myyahoo.com. Or if you want to join our Facebook group, Speak Your Mind, you can post it there. And maybe on a future episode, I'll share your poem on the air. But today, I am so excited to have Chris here because we both wrote poems based on that theme. And I want to share with you why I came up with that theme for you. Because it really got me thinking about, I work with kids. I work with young kids in education. And every child has a time in their life when they're completely pure, they're completely innocent. We all have this shining light within us. But then at some point, there's a convergent point or a crossroads where one bad decision snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And the support system around them, we tend to want to break people into categories of juvenile delinquent, problem child, not going to amount to anything, and then superstar. There's no gray area in between. And I want to kind of get back to that idea of we're all flawed, but we're all diamonds in the rough, especially when it comes to the people who you work with in prison.
Yes.
Yeah. I just think it's so noble, what you have done and what you're doing. And you've done a lot of great work in your life. But this, to me, is like the work of an unsung hero. Yeah, I have to mention. Yeah, and I'm going to give you some props and credit, and the focus is on this book, Hold It Up, Closer to Freedom. Sure. So this writing workshop that Chris Belden did, he did in a prison, and he compiled all the poetry of the prisoners who were involved. But he's also an award-winning author of the book Shriver, which is an incredible journey about being, a writer who faces doubt and just, how we suffer fools or suffer the slings and arrow of being an artist and never thinking we're good enough. That was made into an independent film, a very excellent one. You can see it on Hulu, and it's called The Little Big Lie.
A Little White Lie.
A Little White lie.
Not happy with that title, by the way. But
No, how come?
I prefer they call it Shriver, which is the name of my novel.
That's true. That
but
is
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
forces
Hollywood.
Beyond my control.
Hollywood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll share our poems, and then I do want you to share a little bit more about your experience, with working with the prisoners and how that felt for you and your journey with that. So I'm going to go first because I like to save the best for last.
No.
All right. So this is what I wrote. Diamond in the rough. Stealing office supplies with a heart to pass up the things so easy to grasp and bears a twinge in us all. The line draws closer when sidewalk chalk is no longer for kids. Yellow tape marks off the spot where he had a heart of gold, wrapped in silver bars, grace to make music of what is left.
Groovy.
All right, now you.
Nice.
Now you.
All right. I think I went over 10 lines, but bear with me here. In this building are 600 killers, rapists, child molesters, bank robbers, car thieves, drug pushers, gangbangers, kidnappers, and burglars. For much of their lives, they have been beaten, ignored, raped, threatened, shot at, cut up, and shut out. From the outside, they resemble blocks of stone, sharp-edged, hard, immovable, impenetrable. But deep inside, if you can find it, the grinding pressure of long days balancing on the line between life and death, the pressure of keeping eyes open 360 degrees, 24/7, the pressure of finding oxygen inside the walls of a 6x9, 725,000 pounds per square inch has produced a small, shimmering, multifaceted diamond of humanity. If you look for it, you'll find it.
You packed a lot in there.
Oh.
That you said it all in a concise way. That
tried.
was really incredible. So, because I can go on, I can talk and talk and talk. So I want to give you a few minutes to talk about your experience or anything you want the audience to know or to highlight in this program, your experience in this book. And again, hold it up again for the viewers so they can get it.
Oh, hold it to that camera. I did this for 10 years. It began as a project for my MFA requirement, but I had long wanted to run a writing workshop in prison. I can't even tell you why, like how that got into my head, but it did, and it was so above and beyond what I expected in terms of the inspiration I took from them, the joy that I had working with them. I did it on a weekly basis, and as much as I hated dealing with the administration and the bureaucracy and the getting through the gauntlet through the metal detectors and et cetera, blah, blah, blah.
And you got to leave at the end.
Exactly. Well, once I was in that room with those writers, all that nonsense fell away, and we were just writers.
But I love that you mentioned that, though, because I think that that's a good, as you were saying that, it was a good visceral visual of like just a snippet of what they're experiencing. And so to almost like climb that mountain just to get to them, it's like you're already sort of coming in with a sense of walking in their shoes, like a little sense.
Right. Oh, you feel a real sense of the lack of humanity that's put upon them. Obviously, they're deeply, deeply human, and that's still in there. But the system tries to pull that out of them. So when you go in and you have to give up all your stuff, your wallet and your phone and your watch and everything, and it's like you kind of feel like, oh, what happens next? And then you have to go through this process where people are kind of gruff and nasty.
Yeah.
They really don't want you to be there, even though this work makes their lives easier. I'm talking about the officers and the administrators.
But once you're demoralized, how can you trust anyone? How can you expect anything to be good? How can you even open up, which I think is so amazing that they even opened up.
That's the challenge going in there, and it takes a while because it's like any kids in a school, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, who is this person standing up there? Or, you know, why are they here?
Right.
You know, what do they know? And then times 100 in a prison situation.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I was thinking about, like, you know, because like I said, I work with kids and mainly special needs kids. And now special needs is different. When I first started, special needs was like intellectual disabilities and, you know, speech impediments. Now it really is explosive children with aggressive disorder, you know, very rebellious. And the school system is not conducive to a therapeutic approach.
True.
Because you're confined in, you know, closed space. Yep. But again, they get to go home. But, you know, your students don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I remembered that every time I walked out of there.
Yeah.
So there's that moment you open the door and you're out and it's, you know, it's fresh air.
Yeah.
And I get in my car and drive away.
Thank your lucky stars, right?
And I think, those guys behind me, they don't have this.
They don't have that. Yeah. But, I can talk about this forever, but we don't have enough time.
Me too.
But again, like, just gratitude from me, from society, from everyone, that you are doing this and you're going around, you're sharing about it, you're making people aware of it, because I think that this is the one area of humanity that we've totally neglected, and so many people bury their head in the sand. And just, you know, having you out there, raising people's awareness, hopefully will start to make some change, and more people will do this. And there are a lot of great people out there who are working with prisoners, but we need to up that ante even more. And from that place of remembering that, you know, look for the diamond in the rough. So to wrap up, I'm going to ask you one more question, and I would love for you to tell our audience people, any advice or tips that you have for them in their writing, if they're new writers, to go with it, not give up. If they're professional writers, just, you know, anything from your experience that you want to share with the people at home.
The advice that always comes up for me is advice that I was given by a writing mentor and instructor, a poet by the name of Philip Schultz, who would always talk about, and I'm told this after 10 p.m. and I'm allowed to say words, which I didn't plan on this, but so he calls it the shitbird. The shitbird sits on your shoulder and whispers in your ear and says, "You can't write that. You can't say that. What if your mom sees that?
Yeah.
What if, you know, your wife or your husband or your boyfriend, or whoever sees that? What if it's embarrassing?
Yeah.
What if somebody comes after you? You can't write that.
Yeah.
You need to take that shitbird and grab it."
Doing it.
And I love animals, so just.
But it's a shitbird.
But it's a shitbird, and you need to flush it down the toilet.
Everyone just do that. Take your shitbird and flush it down the toilet.
Don't listen to that guy.
No. I love that, because I've been doing this a long time, and people always think, oh, you don't get nervous and you're so confident. I'm like, not true at all. And I think the more you do it and the more you see and the more you want to say, I think the bigger that shitbird gets.
Oh, sure.
And the more you have to be just bold and
loud.
Be like, loud.
He's a loud shitbird.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's all that time we have to talk, but you're going to do some, you're going to read some poems.
I am.
From the prisoners from your book.
I am.
Great. So folks at home, thank you for joining us. Don't go anywhere, because Chris Belden is going to share some of the poetry from the inmates that he worked with. And stay tuned, channel 192, to Speak Your Mind. And thank you, and I can't wait to hear your poems.
Is by a fellow by the name of Iskar M. Howard. He's currently incarcerated at Cheshire. It's called Papa Don't Preach. When he says you have pretty eyes, say, so does my father. When they invite you to a party, remember what I told you about experiences and how decisions are things you have to live by. No one smiles your smile, and no one feels your pain. If they say, just try it, it's not a big deal, say, nah, I'm cool with what I like doing. It's not like I'm trying to run your life. It's just that everything dark I've been a part of. I know a game when it's presented, so it's only right that I tell you, if you keep chasing garbage, one day you'll end up smelling like it. When someone is stupid enough to glorify any negativity I did in these streets, you just remember. That's why I'm not there like I should be. And that was written to as a prompt to write something to one of your kids. I'm going to read a poem by a transgender incarcerated woman who is also incarcerated at Cheshire right now, even though it's a men's prison. And this was to write a still life. Still life with a hook, wall, bra, and fan. This is by Veronica May Clark. On a hook, fixed to a concrete wall, suspends a tiny bra, gently held, enveloped by a nearby fan's sweet whispering, drying sinusoidally like a hummingbird's wings in slow motion. Its diaphanous and delicate white skin showers kisses over the cold wall as if to wake a lover just departed. I'm going to read a poem by Robert Coover. We had a podium in the library of the prison that we used, and I asked them to write something about the podium. This is called Podium. At first glance, it appears to be just a podium, pieces of metal and wood strung together and placed on a box. But if you look at it and think of the deeper meaning of what that podium represents, it will blow your mind. That podium is an outlet, a portal. It gives a person the chance to hold the attention of the room. It gives a person a place to present his goals, ideals, thoughts, and beliefs. That podium isn't just a podium. It's temporary freedom. And I like to read one, maybe the last one, depending, by Solomon Boyd. I asked them to write a poem about a personality trait that might be annoying to somebody. This is called King of Hoarders. You got a cold, I got a pill. Got a rag for every spill. You want to blow your nose, I got a tissue. What's the issue? I'm the king of hoarders. I got every baseball card from 1951, even got the gum. This guy here, like most of them, his rookie year, he was a bum. His second year, though, 50 home runs. After millions of dollars, he'll now tell you steroids is dumb. His name is Mark McGuire. I'm the king of hoarders. I went hunting because I want a deer on the wall, and a bear on the floor, and a bear on my back. But I can't bear to see all this meat go to waste, so I bought 3 freezers. And I'm a vegetarian. I'm the king of hoarders. I may be broke, but that's a joke. I got a house with a junkyard in the backyard. Old cars look like junk, got trunks in the trunk. Inside the trunks, more junk, like boxes. Inside the boxes, bags. Inside the bags, rocks. You know, the shiny ones you hold on to forever. I'm going to send my daughter to university. She's going to be a doctor. Yeah, I'm the king of hoarders. Thank you.